Lisha, welcome. So good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
So, when you reached out to me, you were talking a lot about recovery from childhood abuse and how that affects all of us today, and how this
hmm
impacts the work that you do. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
I've been helping people reclaim their home. So I have a pretty cool story that really was born out of abuse, but I had a supernatural experience when I was 13 years old that led to me telling my story in a different way, to my mother finally hearing and the unraveling of in-home abuse that was happening to me. And that moment in my life, this ball of energy, or as I saw it, God told me to go home and tell. And then, excuse me, my entire life, I've been helping people reclaim their identities, reclaim themselves to go home and tell. So, what I mean by that is so often we look at the symptomology rather than the root. And then when we do look at the root, we talk about the issues, right? Like this happened and that happened and
Mhm.
then this happened, and it's all reviewing. And yet we never really learn how to marry the concept of identity and reclaiming our homes and knowing who we are and choosing who we are and in spite of everything that happened. And so that's where my work the last 20 years has really been just a different angle. It's a little coaching, little therapy, but a lot of self-inquiry and self-awareness.
Mhm. Okay, this is going to be fun. So, I'm really looking forward to unpacking and explaining, really trying to figure out how you're doing this approach and what this coming back to your home is talking about. But let's talk about your experience for just a second, if that's okay. Because
Yeah.
when you said that you had a supernatural experience when you were 13, you immediately caught my attention with that. Tell me a little bit about it, would you?
Yeah. So I was being approached by my next abuser to be, another 30-year-old. He was at the stables. We had horses. We had quarter horses, and we boarded them in North Glen, Colorado. And anyway, his name was Al. I don't know if he's still alive, but he wanted me to be his girlfriend and was starting all this stuff. And I had been there before. Unfortunately, I had grown up in that environment by just years of abuse, and I had been groomed before. But I went through something when I was 11 that was life altering and a near death experience. I almost would say. And so I had a different reaction this time. Instead of acceptance and trying to deal with it, I had terror come up inside of me. And somehow I got out of the horse stables that day and I ran to this place that we call Dry Lake. And it's now just filled with houses. But at the time, it was like a dry lake that we'd ride our horses on and like everything. Anyway, I hid out there. And from my mind's eye, from my heart's eye, like I remember seeing a ball of light. And I really felt like to me at that age, like it was Jesus. And he just said, go home and tell. And I don't remember really getting home at all to this day. I don't know how I got home. I feel like I kind of just stood up and floated. I got home. I told one of my primary abusers what happened. They took off and took care of Al, and we never saw Al again. I don't know what happened to Al. And um, throughout that week, I told other things that had happened at school and stuff. And my primary abuser was like, I'm going to call everybody and tell what happened and call their dads, and it was really humiliating. So I took him in a back office in my home and I said, how would you like me to go to work and tell everybody what you did to me and embarrass you like you're embarrassing me? And my mother heard it from outside that door and heard him admit it and have that conversation with me. And so when we walked out, she said, well, what happened? And I told her, and she said, I've heard this before. And I was like, yeah, I told you years ago. And that's the week that we left.
Wow. This is really a time where you started using your voice.
Uh-huh.
It's not to say that you weren't using your voice before, because you said that you did tell, but it
Yeah.
wasn't heard. But You said you were 13 and here you're confronting abusers. I'm just thinking about how much courage and fear must have been there. And I can hear it in your voice still to this day. There's still that there's something there that is it's almost like it's still challenging to talk about. Is that accurate?
That, and I've had like the flu or
Mhm.
COVID, and so
Okay.
I have a thing in my throat.
Uh-huh.
But it's not so much hard to talk about.
Yeah.
But with my book coming out, I
Mhm.
didn't talk about it for many years. I made some videos because it was important for people to know what happened, and I wasn't coming just from education
Mhm.
into what I know and what I do in this heart call. But it wasn't something that I went out and told my story everywhere. I actually
Sure.
was kind of against it because I don't want it reprogramming my brain into the way that I thought. And I've, reprogrammed it the other way. I don't want to reprogram it back by reverting and reverting and reverting. But at the same time, with my book coming out, and there's only one little chapter about me, I know that it's important for survivors to understand that, one, they're not alone. Two, that some people were born. I really feel like I was born to one in the cycle of abuse in my family, in the cycle of abuse within myself, perpetuating the abuse and allowing the abuse and abusing myself, and learn how to fully heal. And we all go through that a different way. And so telling my story is a little bit, what do I say? What do I leave out? How far, how deep do I go, you know?
Yeah. Why is that, do you think? Why is there the analysis of how to do it?
Because it can be triggering.
Uh-huh. What do you mean?
Yeah. To tell the gory details is triggering for some people, especially abuse survivors,
Ah, I see.
and can lead them into flashbacks. So it's important to understand how to share your story from a place of empowerment,
Mhm.
and also with a consciousness of being trauma informed, of how deep can you go to be honest without giving so much detail that somebody else might see themselves in
Mhm.
that, and go into a tailspin
Mhm.
where they might have a flashback or have
Yeah.
a memory.
Yeah. So this is an important dynamic, which is, of course, what you're talking about here. On the one hand, is talking about certain dynamics, details, telling stories can be very painful for some people, and so
Mhm.
we want to be very careful in how we do this. But I've also noticed that a lot of people who come from abuse, especially early in their life, are very worried about taking care of other people's emotional experiences to the
Mhm.
point that they will sacrifice their own experience in order to preserve or to care for somebody else. So I
Yes.
wonder, is that possibly a dynamic here?
No.
Uh-huh.
No, because it's quite out of respect and my own education. That does
Sure.
come from education, right? That does come from my PhD and being trauma informed, and
Hmm.
knowing how to treat and help people that have gone through
Yeah.
this identity balanced trauma. But to your point, it is important that we don't not share, right?
Hmm.
That we learn how to share, and we learn how to share with authenticity, and we learn how to share from our hearts, and we learn how to share depending on who's going to listen, right? There are groups where I'm like, how deep do you want me to go?
Hmm.
And I'm teaching, and they're like, we want, you know, lay it all there. And then they're like, oh, I experience that too, and I can relate here. And then it becomes this powwow of understanding and compassion and learning and growing, right? Because of the deep shares. But
Sure.
on a podcast or on a stage where there's a whole bunch of people and you don't know who's listening, it's about, there's a journey to healing. And
Hmm.
if somebody's in denial and my story prompts them out of denial and they don't have that support, it could lead them back into recreating that abuse.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the having a place or an agreement with people where we all know what we're getting into and what we're talking about, and there's a consent that's we're both going to participate in this is very, very important. And yeah,
Yeah,
and I've seen just so many people also who are just they can also use the I don't want to hurt somebody as a defense to not have to face it themselves.
exactly. And that's the denial that will block you from ever healing. The first thing to heal in all of the work that I've ever done and all of the modalities that I've written to help people reclaim themselves, the first is acceptance. Accept
Hmm.
what happened. Because when you do go through the somatic healing, or you do go through the visualization or the journey, right? Through, like, if you use psychedelics, like the journey through healing in that way, and you're going to be shocked by what comes up. You're going to try to argue away what comes up. You're going to try to deny what comes up. You're going to self meanie make, be a meanie to yourself
Hmm.
and self define and create a whole story around it. That's when healing becomes one and eternity. Like, it just goes on forever. You can heal forever if you don't have acceptance. But when you do have acceptance, you go through those things and you're not shocked. You allow the wave, you allow the journey to journey out. You see the flashback and you go, oh, look what I survived.
Hmm. Yeah, perhaps maybe a way of looking at it is when we're rejecting or avoiding the things that we've experienced or the patterns and situations. It's not so much that we're healing for an eternity, it's that the pain's being avoided. And so then it's never actually really addressed and we keep perpetuating it. When we're
Mm-hmm.
avoiding or resisting something that's inside of us, one of the things I usually ask people is, well, was there ever a time in your life where you were experiencing something and somebody around you rejected or avoided it or suppressed it or told you that that's not right and you weren't supposed to feel that way?
Mm-hmm.
And almost always the answer is, well, yeah. So then we're treating
Mm-hmm.
ourselves the same way that caused the pain to begin with. So we're stuck in the cycle of trying to address the pain, trying to work with it and heal it, but rejecting it or avoiding
Yep.
it. And then we can't actually work with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, acceptance is such a hard piece for so many people. I usually start. That's usually the second stage that I work with people in.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness, recognizing, identifying is usually where I start with. Can we identify the patterns? Can we see where I am avoiding something or suppressing
Mm-hmm.
something, or I'm in one of these patterns of beating myself up? And then
Mm-hmm.
can I accept it? And yeah, those are crucial. If we want to do anything with it,
Yeah.
we got to be able to work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I start with safety.
Hmm.
Yeah. The pattern is usually what brings somebody in, right?
Yeah.
Whatever's paining them, whatever it is. Sometimes for my real research and everything really began from healing from the effects of childhood sexual abuse. And the amount of symptoms that come to the majority of people that have gone through that is
Hmm.
just ridiculous. It's so long. And and so they know the patterns, they know what's coming that hurt them. And so we create that safety first. And then it's safe to accept not the pattern or what happened, but it's safe to accept whatever happened to them. Because
Hmm.
that's what the argument's usually about. Well, it didn't really happen, or it wasn't that bad, or they didn't mean it, or right.
The rationalizing and justifying
Mm-hmm.
or downplaying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that when we go through trauma, especially early in life, which is where almost all of it develops, is that affects our development for the rest of our lives. So
Uh-huh.
our baseline of stress and fear and nervousness is very high because it's developing in relationship to that trauma. So then later in life, safety is something that might just be a concept or an idea that we vaguely have that we can vaguely see, but we don't really understand what it is.
Uh-uh.
I mean, for instance, when I went to my my first therapist when I was in my mid 20s. I'm in university. I finally have health insurance for the first time, and I have access to a university therapist. And talking to her, and I'm realizing that all day, every day, my heart is just in complete threat survival mode. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it would be like if there was somebody here right now with a gun threatening to kill me. That's the kind of response that my body was always in. And I was
Mm-hmm.
realizing it was like that from the moment I woke up until the time I could finally fall asleep. And then when I would sleep, I would be waking up screaming with night terrors all throughout the night.
Mm.
So I was just constantly in this. So I didn't even have an idea of what safety could look like. And it took so many years of diligent, hard self exploration to find it myself.
Yeah. That's what I hope to stop people from having to go through.
Yeah.
And that's why I created Safe, Secure, and Successful, is because it is a practice through each of your identity
Hmm.
layers. You have 4 powers and 2 expressions. Everybody does. It makes your identity. And then the true self is the observer, the soul, the essence that can see everything. And when you reclaim safety within yourself, then you can determine safety out here a
Hmm.
lot better. And the hypervigilance goes away a lot faster.
Hmm.
But the fear that's so common is that it's just scary to be in your body. It's scary to
Right.
be aware of yourself and all the stuff. So that's why when we walk through each layer, you're breaking it up as the observer and then resetting the nervous system, the body mind to safety. And it's more of a frequency and a vibration than it is like I am safe hypervigilance building. And it's not really psychology, because they don't really believe in neuroscience or neuroplasticity as much as hopefully they will in the future.
Hmm. Yeah. So, so many people can be sitting here, sitting in a room by themselves alone, and they're totally safe. And
Mhm.
then the anxiety, nervousness, panic starts coming in.
Mhm.
And I mean, this used to happen to me constantly. And so it's very difficult to be safe even when you're physically safe.
Mhm.
So walk me through a little bit of this. When you're working with somebody who's in that kind of residual pain from the past that's constantly
Mhm.
showing up in the present, how do you work
Yeah.
with them to help them start to feel safe enough to actually address that pain?
So are you willing to go through a little experience with me?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's do safe, secure, and successful. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is just, if you're comfortable, close your eyes. If not, just look down,
Hmm.
like through your nose, and just feel your breath and just notice your body. It's not what you're thinking, not how you're feeling, but just notice your body. Like, can you wiggle your toes and feel your toes? And if you can't, that's okay. It's just awareness that, oh, I'm not in my feet. Can you feel the bottoms of your feet? Can you feel your calves and your knees? Keep breathing and feeling your thighs. Notice if there's any place that your body wants to jump, or you want to leave really fast, or there's extra pain there. Just notice it. I'm just going to give it some awareness, some acceptance that it's there, not trying to fix it or change it. Nothing's wrong with it. It's just information. Feel your guts and your back and your ribs and your shoulders, down your arms and your palms, feeling your neck, the back of your head and your forehead, your jaw. And just notice the part of you that's noticing your body. Right here, right now. Can your body be safe with you? And if no, not yet, that's okay. It's just an observance. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. And notice if you are safe with your body. So, one is your body taking care of you, the other is you taking care of your body. They can be different answers. And in this moment and in this instant, are you willing to take care of your body from the higher perspective? And that's where safety begins. That's where security begins. And then we go through the same journey through the other layers. So your mental mind, which includes your nervous system, your heart, and your gut, your emotional body, which is your fascia, and your all the connective tissue and your emotions, and then your etheric field, which is a vibrational field made up of your plasma, is where it stems from, but it goes out about 3 to 10 feet from you. And we just make sure you're owning your own space and you're safe within yourself. And sometimes that requires some practice. I have clients that come in and they start practicing SSS and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in my body. I want to crawl out of my skin. I want to run. And then we do some practices to reset the nervous system, like running in place or freezing in place or hiding, right? All the things that the fight, flight, or freeze, because the body is stuck in that. And so you can't be safe. It's not safe with you.
Right.
And you're not home inside of you. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually one of the first things that I do is, in this area is I bring the attention back into the body too. And this can be done for a grounding exercise. So if I'm in this room and I'm all of a sudden very nervous, one of the things I encourage people to do is first things to look around and see is the threat.
The 5 things, yep.
Is there actually a threat here? No, then it's an internal threat probably coming from the past. And so then if we can find, one, we can ground, right? We can focus on, okay, let's come back to the breathing. Let's, pay attention to the gut and to the breathing and feel our body expand and contract and bring our attention to the present moment. But I also find that there's these hot spots that you started noticing too, the gut, the heart, the throat, the jaw, where we hold a tremendous amount of tension. And that's usually where that pain from the past is stored.
Yeah.
And so once I start to become aware of it, then we, exactly as you were doing, we look at what is your relationship with this thing, right? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? And what do you do with it? Do you embrace it? Do you comfort it? Do you express it? Or do you resist it and try to exile it? Or do you fight it and punish it? Are you in a conflict with it? And I find that most of the times it's the latter. There's a conflict with it. We want it to go away.
Yeah.
And of course, I usually ask, well, was there ever a time in your life where you felt this feeling and somebody told you that it was too much or that it was bad or they wanted it to go away or, it was resisted or suppressed? And the answer is almost always yes. So here again, we're continuing this cycle of treating ourselves the way that the feeling was treated when we first developed.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a excellent exercise. I find it very useful.
Yeah. SSS is really designed to reprogram. So you begin to think from a singular place, from your soul essence, from the consciousness essence, and it becomes safe again to be at home in your vessel. Because when trauma happens, what happens to the soul or the essence, the consciousness is kind of kicked out. And the animalistic pieces of us, the survival pieces of us begin to take over.
Sure.
And then the world is really built on these survival pieces too. So when you are managing the symptoms, which are like, is there something dangerous around me? What's the thing inside of me? Let me process this. Let me look for the shadow. Let me go through this. And we're doing this. This is why the healing can take decades.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, okay, how can I help myself and how can I help others heal, like really, without having to do all of this management, whether it's through popping pills, whether it's through managing the stress. Like I want the flinches. I want the panic. I want the I don't trust myself to go away. And when we live through this different lens by reclaiming the safety within ourselves, by telling our mind, hey, no, I think you don't think me. Right. So when you
Mhm.
go into safe, secure, and successful out of the body, that was the body experience. But for the mind, you really get to watch, oh, those are my thoughts.
Mhm.
They're thinking me right now. I'm
Right.
thinking about the past right now. How can I quickly and effortlessly go, no, I'm observing that thought. I'm back in the control wheel and I'm not thinking about that, not to avoid it, but to it no longer is what's going to show up on my reality screen. It no
Sure.
longer is going to be what I'm projecting or my experience of me. I'm no longer willing to feel bad about it if it's in the emotional body. And really separating those out so you know how to drive your car, you know if all the wheels are pumped up and full of air and you're in four-wheel drive and you're ready to go, rather than managing it and constantly stopping and filling up one pump and trying to think better and then trying to feel better and then trying to think better and then trying to move it away and then trying to like go and pray it away, and just understanding that you have these tools that are yours and not, they aren't you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense. That might be a little deep. I haven't gone into it, but I wanted to take away the I have to heal forever.
Mhm. Yes.
And I have to cope and I have to manage and I have to go through these processes in order to not have the anxiety or not have the negative self-talk or not have the dysfunction in my relationships.
Right. Yeah, you're talking about exercising choices, and yeah, you're identifying a key part of trauma, like the hallmark of trauma. I always say the fingerprints of trauma. The end result of trauma is that there's a disconnect, which
Mm,
is when we went through the overwhelming, painful experience, there was only one way that we could navigate it. We couldn't make it stop. We couldn't set boundaries with it. We couldn't go
mhm,
away physically. So we go away mentally. We check out. We go away from our bodies. And that's the survival
mm,
response. And then that becomes a pattern that gets reinforced. And so then later in life,
mm,
we're constantly checked out, or we're away from the bodies, or we're in our mind, oftentimes
mm,
replaying those painful
mm.
circumstances,
Yeah.
arguing with the people whom hurt us as if they're
Mm.
here and we're going to really tell them. And then we're just in this loop over and over and over again. And yeah, I think a lot of the times, I
Yeah.
mean, it took me a long time going through this because, well, I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have money. I didn't
Mhm.
have the ability to ask people for help at the time.
Mm.
It wasn't until I found really good teachers where 10 years of hard, laborious work became 2 months of, wow, I've really made some significant changes here.
Yeah.
And that's where you can start to exercise those choices as you're talking about, like, the car that we're in. Most of the times, there's the childish version of me who learned how to go away mentally, who's in the driver's seat, and I'm in the back seat
Mhm.
as the adult here. And this guy's just driving me wherever he wants to go, thinking he's taking care of me. But if
Mhm.
I could be the adult here and say, oh my gosh, here's this pattern again. I'm up in my mind. I'm so far away. I
Mm.
recognize that I can say, okay, yeah, here it is again. Here's that old pattern. And then I see that that's a part of me that still carries around all that pain. I might not like
Mhm.
that pain. I might not want the pain to be here. But if I can choose to comfort that pain and to try to soothe that pain, well, that's my way of getting my hands on the steering wheel and taking that childish version of me and tucking him into his car seat, so to speak. So he's safe and I'm going to get him to where he actually wants to go, but I'm going to be the one to drive there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one way to look at it. I look at it a little differently, because I do think that all of the childhood repatterning, and I love timeline therapy. I love regression. I do it all. I do the hypnosis depending on what my clients need at that moment. But when it really boils down to it, it's not choosing and observing from that point of view. It's
Mhm.
so much simpler. It's, ugh, what part of me is driving? So for
Mhm.
you, you said mind, right? So for you, you said your mind like kind of detaches and takes over. For a lot of women, it's our emotions,
Mhm.
right? A lot of men, they're in their mind, they're masculine. Some women, right? But more women have more emotional outbursts where their emotional body takes over and just kind
Sure.
of goes with them. And so either way is the same thing, but it's not that your mind detaches, it's that your mind takes over. And so
Mhm.
it's not the experience necessarily that you have to go back into. That actually helps to recreate the same experience in a different light. And we call them like tests of limitations, where you're just committed to the same thing over and over again. It keeps coming up in a different face, different era. But when you recognize, oh, my brain is taking over, it's leading me on from this story. I am safe. There's no separation between me and my infant self. But now I have this opportunity to reclaim my thoughts from this higher perspective, from my soul essence. And where do I want to think? That's my wisdom. Everything that happened to me, where do I want to think? Rather than giving it more power and going into, now I have to process it. What's the pattern? How do I get through it? Go and heal the inner child, right? All these steps. I think that way it's helpful. It's wonderful. It is great for making money. I don't think it's $1 billion business, right? But there's a way to look at it as we're not separate. There's not 1,800 Julians like running around going, little Julia, like there's just a thought. There's just a timeline. There's just a memory. And when you reclaim that and you choose from that place, it takes a lot of the effort, a lot of the work, a lot of the story, a lot of the recreation of that reality. If you're looking at the mirrored reality, if you're looking at the law of attraction, the law of assumption, any of the universal laws, really, if you're looking at those and saying, well, how does that fit into my healing journey? When we review, when we go back in time, when we take care of that, it just means that little you, little me can jump out and take over again from that memory space. But when we go, like we're not even on this road anymore. It is choice, but it's an awareness and choice, I feel. And it cuts the healing time, the processing time, the reviewing time in quarter. It's a lot shorter and it doesn't repeat, it doesn't come up. And the new things that do come up can equally be taken care of in the same time frame.
How do
Does
you
that
do
make
that?
sense?
Kind of. I'm having a
Yeah.
slightly difficult time following, because there's a lot of concepts and phrases here that are. I mean, we could spend the whole hour and a half unpacking. How do you explain all of these various laws and concepts that you're mentioning? So, can you walk me through how do you do this idea that you're talking about here?
So the first part is just realizing that you are a consciousness within yourself, that there is a kingdom within you, and you're a consciousness within yourself. And in that consciousness, you're built up of 5 sheaths, 5 primary sheaths. But the first one, you have a physical body. The second one, you have a mental mind. And what is the mental mind, right? So we have thinking. So that's where you do the timeline therapy. That's where you do the inner child work. That's where you do the storytelling. That's where you do all of that. That's where you do the choices. That's all the words. Um, but it's also your heart actually has more neurons than your brain. Your guts have equal, right? That's why we have a gut feeling. It's really a gut thought down here. And it's all connected through your nervous system. So right now, nervous system is like the thing to heal. So understand like what is the brain? Then we have your emotional body. And are you safe in your emotions? Are your emotions safe with you? Do you feel? Where are you with that? Do you make meaning, right? Do your emotions just kick on your brain and never really feel because your brain takes over and just starts wrapping it up in meaning? And then we have our etheric field. We have our Wi-Fi, our magnetic field. And most people don't even talk about that yet. And yet, if you've ever had a psychedelic trip, right? If you've ever had a supernatural experience, if you've ever had an out of body experience, you know that's very real. And so the first thing is to recognize that you have a body, you're not a body, you have a mind, you're not a mind, you have emotions, you're not emotions, and you have an etheric field, you're not them. And begin recognizing, who are you? Right? Not by definition of character, like that essence behind it. I call it soul. People can call it whatever they want. Higher self, soul, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. It's in you, that part of you that's observing, the witness, as Freud would say. So we're getting in touch with that witness, and we're claiming safety in our bodies, that our bodies, our minds, our emotions, and our etheric field are safe with its witness, that we, as the witness, are going to take care of our vessels, only our vessels, not your vessel, not I can only take care of mine, you can only take care of yours, but boom. And when that happens, you're no longer living for somebody else. So that's part of the reprogramming right there. It's done. And then once we get to this space, it's about recognizing when the body, so the pattern that I do really help my clients recognize is like, when is the craving of the body taking over? When is the story of the mind taking over? When is the emotions taking over? And when is the outside world, the exterior authority taking over? And how much power are you giving that? How much choice are you giving that? And is it for your highest good? Because I don't know about you, but my body in my lifetime has had some pretty crazy cravings that weren't for its highest good and weren't for my highest good. My mind's done the same thing. My emotions have been out of whack, crazy sometimes, and totally embarrassing. Okay? And I've definitely given my power away to the outside world and been dependent and wanted to be saved and so forth and so on. So when we reclaim that and we begin reprogramming ourselves through choice, but reprogramming ourselves from this basic view, like we are the computer program, for lack of a better analogy, and we're programming the body. Who are you? Well, I'm an athlete. Awesome. How does an athlete wake up? Is your body doing that right now? No. So you're an athlete in your head. I can't give too many analogies because we're on a show, but it's like we go through this. And what it does when it comes to the stories that you're telling in your head, you recognize when you're stuck in the brain. So if you're telling the story in the brain, you have to process it. You need to understand it. You're going through it. You have to go get the child, the inner child, and all of that, which is excellent. Excellent work. But it's work. It takes days to process, sometimes weeks, sometimes months to process that, which is fine. I did it. But it was never over. That 4-year-old would come back up and she'd run the show again, and again, and again. And finally I was like, wait a minute, you're my 4-year-old. We're not separate. And you're living in my brain. So it's not even a 4-year-old. It's just a neural pathway in my brain. And this is my brain. So we're going to fill that pathway up. And I'm going to create a new pathway that says, oh, you can listen to this person and you can communicate. And if that person doesn't like you, screw it. Walk away. Or whatever the scenario my 4-year-old was reacting to, fear of abandonment. And so working with the person from this conscious soul psychology level and how trauma affects that through disassociation and fragmentation is an instant healing. And then it's just a practice of relating to yourself and recognizing, oh, my body's craving that ice cream at 12 o'clock at night when I know I should have it in the morning. It would be healthier for me than right before bed. Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you were saying that your 4-year-old self, for instance, kept coming up and repeatedly kept taking over the show, what was it that clicked for you, that changed, where you were able to say that we're not separate, that we're the same being here? What shift did you make?
So the shift that I made and my clients have all made, so it hasn't just been me, but the main shift that I see people making in that is no longer thinking that they weren't the 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. Like, oh, the 4-year-old is now 40.
Hmm.
Like, it's still a part of me right now. If it wasn't, if it was back there, then that'd be something different. But as long as you're trying to reconcile that, then you can say, okay, every age that was ever hurt, every time that I ran that scenario in my head, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't loved, that I wasn't safe, that nobody liked me, or whatever the story is, every time that I've ran that from that origin forward, seeing it or unknown, like all of it's healed because I now choose that my inner children are safe.
Hmm.
My inner children, I'm safe within me now. My body is safe within me now. So every choice that I have lived through that was painful or hurtful or where I've held things, I now don't need to remind me to heal it. Like, I just claim the healing.
Okay. When people come in and they say that they want to heal or that they're working on healing, or hear when you say that this child is healed, what does that mean? I think that a lot of people are all coming in with like different ideas. If we were to ask 10 people what does healing look like, you'd get probably 10 very different answers. So what
Yeah.
does it look like for you?
So in More Than Sex and Secrets, my podcast, I did a whole year on what is healed and interviewed a whole bunch of people because it means so many different things to each person. To me, healed means that I don't have to review it every day.
Hmm.
I'm not blocking it. I'm not fighting it. I don't have to review it. I'm not healing it. I'm not actively looking in the past, digging up the past, processing the past, blocking the past, dealing with the past, worried that the past is going to be brought up around me, scared that if it is, I'm not going to react properly or, some way. Like all of that isn't there. For me, healed also means my panic attacks aren't there. That when I do notice the low vibration of terror, I'm no longer like, oh, low vibration of terror. I go, oh, hi. Hi, old friend. I feel you. Okay. What's going on? Okay. Right? Like it's now my intelligence, not my fear, not my abuser.
So the patterns, emotions from the past aren't driving the car that you're in anymore. They're not running the show, essentially. When
Exactly.
you say that they're not here, I mean, it seems like they still show up, like you were just talking about here. Like when terror shows up, rather than getting upset or worked up about it, you see that it's here. So is it that they're gone, or are they still showing up for you, but your relationship and how you work with them is very different, and that allows them to resolve and process much faster?
Well, I mean, sometimes like a car pulls in front of you really fast, right? And you
Hmm.
slam on the brakes and you're like, oh my gosh. And you
Sure.
have a spark of terror and it's justified. That was terrifying
Hmm.
for a moment. But that terror from the moment no longer hijacks my nervous system for the next 6 hours.
Hmm.
Sometimes I have a fight with a friend or a fight with my kids because life's or a slow month, right? Because life's. It's, I think so many people think healing means that life will just be perfect
Hmm.
and you'll no longer have anything ever go wrong in your life again. You're going to be just blissful, right? And then you'll be healed. But to me, life's. And I'm not going to expect life not to life. But the emotions where I used to have fear of something or that low grade terror that was always there, or sadness, or some defensiveness come up, proving come up. When that comes up now, I'm not taken on a tailspin. Like, I don't even look at the tailspin. I actually notice afterwards, oh my gosh, huh. I remember the first time, it was years ago, but I remember standing in my kitchen and having a boyfriend come up behind me. And normally I'd flinch and then I'd want to punch them, right? But I'd gone through my PTSD healing and everything. But I mean, I flinched and wanted to punch and would have to hold my hands down and like pretend like I was being nice and let him hug me. And I was like, oh, fuck, get away from me. Right. And everything, like knowing in my mind, because I'm like processing it, like knowing in my mind, like it's fine, like I'm safe, like he likes me, like it, right? But I'm like, right from this like little girl in the kitchen. And I remember the first time where I was like, wow, he just hugged me and kissed me and everything's fine. And I didn't want to punch anybody. Oh my God. Like that was cool. And then it just never came back. Right?
Mhm.
It just is gone. I don't have to manage it. I don't have to pull my hands down. I don't have to work through the feelings. I don't have to go and revisit my 8-year-old girl in the kitchen anymore. Like nothing is there. But it was a pattern I had my entire life that until I reclaimed my body, until I unraveled that, not from a ton of therapy, from I'm safe with me.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's just not there.
Mhm. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like emotions are here for a reason.
Mhm.
And they serve very important a very important part in our lives. They're signals that are helping us interact with the world around us. Fear is a very useful emotion.
Very useful. I need
Anger,
it.
anger,
Mhm.
incredibly useful emotion.
Exactly.
Um, I find that the problem is that at some point in our lives, we didn't learn how to recognize them or to process them or express them in healthy, constructive ways.
And that's why we have amazing emotions. Yeah, that's why the holistic approach is necessary.
Hmm.
If a person doesn't learn for themselves where they feel, what stories are around, and what emotion they're expressing, right? They'll assume one, everybody feels the same way as they do, which is not the case. And two, they won't know how to express themselves and they'll always be running from their emotions. And we have an entire 2 months where we spend on just like, what are your emotions? How do you express them? What's your language? And how do you read them? So you no longer have to have an empty emotional wheel.
Right.
You can have it pumped up.
Yeah. And, it's almost like a teacher of mine talks about trauma in the sense that when we go through it, we almost become like frozen in time. So all those emotions that we felt at that time get stuck and they become
Mhm.
residual emotions that we keep experiencing later in life. So my partner comes and gives me a hug and I have the terror response. This is terror that has been stuck from the
Mhm.
past. And so really learning to recognize, identify emotions that are here and now, but then also really learning how to work with those ones that are continuously showing up is a very crucial part of this process too. Is that
Mhm.
what you're talking about when you're saying that these emotions are coming up for you, and then all of a sudden you're able to work with them and make choices to do things differently with them?
Well, emotions are three things. They're energy and motion, right? So the emotion comes in and then it triggers the response of a meaning, right? So we start running a meaning of it. And then that meaning then triggers an action. So this can act on its own, right? Sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes we're not aware of it. But when we are emotionally intelligent, one, we make the emotion safe with us. So I have a lot of clients that come in with rage. Tons of rage, tons of anger. It's been really useful for us. It's also been something that we weren't allowed to really express in a safe way. So now that we're out of that safe way, we want to be rageful at everybody. And it gets people to move, gets things to move. It's a fast-paced moving vibration. It's actually a pretty great emotion. When you know how to trust yourself, and then we come back into the safety, how to trust yourself to express it. So then you learn what you didn't get to learn in an unhealthy family. You learn, well, how do I express anger? How do I communicate that? right? For me, I like going down to the pool and doing what I call the no practice. So I just scream, primal screaming, and just scream underneath the water, let it all out. And it just moves the energy. I'm validating myself, moves the energy out of the way. And then I can come back and express my needs, because that's really what it is, or express what I want. Same for sadness. Same for any of the emotions. Numbness is an emotion. A lot of people don't recognize that, but numbness is an emotion. So what do you do when you have numbness? I don't know. Some people freeze, some people go to work. Right? A workaholic, know how you do that. Yeah, so emotional intelligence is just as important as mental intelligence and understanding your story, which is just as important as knowing what to eat and how to take care of your body.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just like with the rage, I find that we don't know what to do with it. And it's been stuffed down and bottled up for so long that it just comes
Mm.
bursting out the seams in really inappropriate ways a lot of the times, really unconstructive ways, usually
Mhm.
on the people whom we don't want to express our rage with. So
Mhm.
when somebody is actually pushing our boundaries and harming us, the pattern of suppress
Mhm.
the rage gets put into place. And maybe we have to. Maybe it's like a work dynamic where our boss is coming in there as,
Oh.
some sort of manipulator, predator, bully, and we have to suppress all of that so we can keep our income. And then we come home and it's been bottled up, and then it comes out on our kids or it comes out
Yeah.
on our partners, and in a very unstructured way. So, yeah, really learning to recognize these things and use them properly. Like, we see animals, they get into a fight with each other, or, you know, the other day I watched a squirrel get chased by a hawk and zipping around and outran the hawk. And the hawk,
Wow.
got away from it, and the hawks flew away back up in the tree and then left. And 2 minutes later, the squirrel's just walking around, chewing on little mushrooms like nothing even happened. But a human, on the other hand, will have the smallest little interaction. And I don't want to say small as in like it's not important, but it could be, the clerk at the grocery store said something and we interpreted it in a really nasty way. And now we're full of all this rage and pent up anger for days, as you were talking about. So there's a really clear difference of when we know what to do with the emotions in the experience, and we can actually be present and say, that's not actually rage from this moment. It's activating something that's been stored up from years ago. And then we can move on and let this thing process or express in however we need to, and move into, again, it seems like you keep coming back to being in the present moment.
Mm, well, I think it's important to get into the present moment before you start creating the presents that you want.
What do you
That's
mean?
a different conversation. Well, right now I'm really in my own personal life. I'm doing some experiments with a coach of mine that is really talking about like what frame are you in, what camera space are you in, right? So, um, I am now learning what I didn't get to learn as a child and didn't get to learn in my 20s and 30s when I was processing a whole bunch of stuff, and and really hone in and discover, because my 40s were really great. Like I had a really good 40s. So my 50s are all about like cr- creating where I want to be and not even focusing on the present, and how to do that with complete authenticity and how to do that from this place. So for me, it's something I'm learning, but I think to get into the presence, to answer your question and stay on task, like to get into the present moment is important, but it's forced sometimes. Right? We don't want to deny that time is fluid. Like time is a made up concept. Time is just like, yeah, it's just crazy. And if anybody has PTSD, like, that you can turn into that 4-year-old, like we were talking about. You could turn into the 2-year-old that needs to be buckled into the car seat. You can turn into all of those things. So if time travel wasn't possible, right? Maybe we're not like jumping through some ethers into something, but we definitely can turn into something in somebody else. And learning how to have mastery over that rather than it have mastery over you, I think is one gift that a lot of us with CBTSD and PTSD have. We have the opportunity to flip it and look at it the other way. So I'm having fun doing that in my own life. So being in the present moment is one thing, but it's more important to recognize within yourself how to move these energies through that physical form. So if you have rage, I would say learn practices like the no practice, which is great to do in the car. So if the boss does something, you know you have to suppress it in that moment, but it really pissed you off. You don't want to take it out on somebody else because you take full responsibility for that. You're okay. Here's the key. You're okay with anger. Anger is not the bad thing that you never can feel, right? That only can come out and be expressed when you're triggered by something after you've suppressed it long enough that it explodes like a volcano. But no, you're in charge of it. It's not in charge of you. So then you go into the car and you go, ah, and you scream until that energy is dispersed and it's out. You go home and you black out journal, meaning you just write over yourself over and over and over again, the same half page or whatever. And what that does is it literally deletes the program,
Mhm.
right? You just but you validate, accept that what happened at work was baloney. Like you having to deal with this person that is completely out of touch with themselves and being a complete jerk to everybody, like is valid. And everybody kind of feels that way, but you need the paycheck. So you're choosing powerfully to put yourself back in that bullying situation. You're going to get to off gas it every day. You're going to get to set some boundaries around that every day, right? And so understanding that is really important.
Mhm. Now, I got to come back to when you're saying there's a difference between when you're talking the difference between being in the present moment and being, I think you said, where you want to create. What is this dynamic that you're talking about here? That one really
Oh,
stuck with
I'm
me.
like, come back to me in a couple months, and I'll share more of my experience. But I know, like in my past, like there was moments in my past where I really, really wanted something, and I would state, oh, I really want, I really wanted to keep my home, right? I really want to keep my home. It seems impossible to keep my home. There's nothing and nothing can happen, but I'd wrap my home in white light and I'd just stick my foot in the sand and I was like, it's mine. And then a spark, an idea would come to me and I'd act on that idea, knowing that in the future I own the home. And then I own the home. Everything worked out. Other things have my book, my PhD, traveling around the world and speaking, like different things have happened where I would just know something in the future, claim it, and move in that faith, and then it would fall into place. And that has happened enough times in my life and enough times with my friends that I'm like, how can I do that? Because I keep reversing a couple things back to the same screen. Or I was like, why am I keep playing this story over and over again? And so if I can go backwards and have PTSD, if I can go backwards and have an experience so real, which I haven't had for a long time, but I used to be thrown backwards so often, and I can be in the present, why can't I create another timeline where I'm the version of me that I really, really want to be already? And then let the world shift around me rather than trying to control the world by shifting it. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
And that's the quantum experience, which I'm playing with in my own life right now. So it's basically just changing the frame. Instead of relating to you or anybody else from, oh, I'm in this present moment where I have my book coming out in 2 weeks, I have my programs done, and I'm doing all this media and I'm talking to some really great people and everything, coming from this place where, okay, I already have my book's been out for a while. Everybody knows what I talk about already, right? Like I've been on many, many stages. Just coming from the intention, I guess, is where I'm playing with now.
So your book's coming out in 2 weeks.
My book's coming out in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What is this book on?
So this book is The Amazing You Method. So The Amazing You Method, I began creating in 2007. It came out in its first online program in 2010. And I've worked with 1,000 people over it. I even got America's premier expert in self-care around it. So it's nothing new, but it's never been distilled down into a book that people around the world can buy and go through on their own for $29.99. So what it is you walk through the power zones that we've been talking about today, and you begin defining yourself, learning your own language, bringing yourself back into the presence of choice and into you. And it's the fastest way to heal from the effects of childhood abuse or loss of identity or losing yourself in a domestic violence, abusive relationship.
And if somebody wanted to find this book or any of your work, where could they find that?
Let's go to lishaantiqua.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an awesome identity shift blueprint that's I worked with my coach and we developed a AI that thinks like me. So what you're going to get is you're going to get a mirrored back so you can see some of those patterns and acceptance and things that we were talking about, Jillian. And then we can look at some shifts in you for NLP and some mirror work and some expression work that I give you there. And then you also get a download on which are the power zones. So we talked about the 4 primary power zones, the 4 wheels of your car, the physical, mental, emotional, and etheric bodies. So which ones are kind of running your show, right? And then I invite you to get SSS, which is a $27 bundle, which is super affordable too. But I invite you to get that to go through the process and even deeper than we did today with the body zone.
Terrific. I'll make sure to have all of those linked into the show notes, of course.
It's all at lishaantiqua.com. All of it's right there.
Terrific. Well, we're still here and we're getting close to our time to wrap up here. Is there anything that you would want to leave anybody who's listening with, a final message?
You do heal. You do heal, and you can, and it definitely doesn't have to take forever. And it's so cliche that everything is inside of you, but it really is. But it's when you are safe with you. And I'd love to help you get there.
Terrific. Lisha, thank you so much. This has been lovely. I'm really glad that we got to connect today.
Me too. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here, and thank you, everybody.